Start the meeting. I'm going to proceed along, try to get the meeting organized and get it started. I'll announce one more time for those who have come in after my last announcement. When you come in tonight, make sure you go to your supervisors of the checklist and register with them. Once you do that, you'll get a voter card, which helps to allow you to speak tonight and to vote. If you're a non-voter, you should be sitting up on the bleachers to my right. So anyone sitting other than up in those bleachers, if anyone is next to you without a voter card, I should know that, because they should not be sitting there. Okay? Why don't we start the meeting tonight with a Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? So if you'd all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. What I usually do next is have introductions. As most of you probably know, I'm your school district moderator, Barry Sargent, and we have a long list in front of me of illustrious people. So why don't we introduce ourselves, and a good way of checking the mics too. If you'd start down here, sir, with you at far down table at my right, and we'll work our way across to the left. If you would all introduce yourselves, everyone gets to know who you are.
Lupor Sully, Sandown School Board.
Rob Collins, Danville School Board.
John Peony, Plastow School Board.
Lori Aubrey, Sandown School Board.
Lisa Withy, Plastow School Board.
Arlene Champy, Danville School Board.
Michael Mascola, Atkinson School Board.
Elizabeth Costa, Plastow School Board.
Peter Bronstein, District Legal Counsel.
Richard LaSalle, Superintendent of Schools.
George Stokinger, Business Administrator.
Charlie Belanoff, Budget Committee for Plastow.
Glenn Mullen, Budget Committee, Danville.
Michelle O'Neill, Budget Committee, Danville.
Kate Rochford, Budget Committee, Atkinson.
George Murray, Budget Committee, Atkinson.
Dave Dhaliwal, Budget Committee, Plastow.
Brenda Kopp, Budget Committee, Sandown.
I'd also like to make note that for those viewing this session from home, we'd like to offer you the opportunity to access the information we'll be presenting by logging on to the district's website at www.timberlane.net and clicking on Deliberative Session Information located directly under the mission statement. Next thing I'll do is go over the handouts you ought to have. If you don't have them, they're located in the back of the room at the main entrance. You should have a white sheet that says deliberative session on the front. It's probably got 6 or 7 pages to it. You should all have a copy of that. You should have a copy of the yellow sheet from Atkinson explaining the budget, orange one from Danville, a pink one from Plastow, and a green one from Sandown. Should all have copies of that. Are there any other handouts that anyone has or has been handed out tonight? I'd like to be aware of all the handouts you have. No other handouts? Okay. The next thing I will do is, I've been given a list of non-voters who may be making presentations tonight or who may wish to speak. And I have that list. This one here? Why don't you tell the superintendent? I've been told we have run out of the copies of the handout with the warrant in it, so we're going to make adjustments as soon as we can to get you all copies of it. In the meantime, I'm going to proceed along with my list of possible non-voters who may wish to speak. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read off the list of people, and I'll ask for a motion and a second, and if there's any debate on any of them, fine. And then I'm going to call for a vote on this list of non-voters. Richard LaSalle, Superintendent of Schools. George Stokinger, Business Administrator. Peter Bronstein, District Legal Counsel. Kelly Kellen, Director of Elementary Education. Scott Strange, Interim Director of Secondary Education. Edwina Lovett, Director of Pupil Personnel. Beth Rincon, Assistant Director of Pupil Personnel. Michelle Ozier, Principal, Pollard School. Douglas Rolfe, Principal, Sandown Central. Michael Hogan, Principal, Timberlane Regional Middle School. John Holland, Director of Technology. Tony DeBartolomeo, Director of Music. Jim Hughes, Director of Facilities. Linda Hewer, Technology Coordinator. Bob Dawson, Assistant Principal, Evening Division. Could I hear a motion from the floor for these people to be able to vote? From anyone? Yes. Give your name, please.
Elizabeth Costa, Plastow.
Is there a second? Yes, you want to come down and give your name, please? By the way, I should have announced that the microphone for speaking for the general public is over here.
Louise Pajak, Sandown, I second.
Is there any discussion on any of these people being able to vote? Yes? I meant to speak, yes. Point well taken. Is there any discussion on any of them being able to speak? Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. I believe I'm going to next go over a few of the rules that I used tonight for this meeting. Need to have your voter cards. The reason for this meeting tonight is to explain, debate, and amend. It's one of the biggest powers you people have is to be able to amend these articles tonight. And as you amend them, that's the way you will see them on your ballot election day. So you can amend tonight, but the final vote is taken on election day. I use Robert's Rules of Order as a guide only. Other than that, I go by the rules that I set down and or any rules that need to be addressed as the meeting progresses. If you wish to speak tonight, we have a microphone set up for you down here. When you come to the mic, please give your name and stick to the issues at hand. Let's try to refrain from any arguing, name-calling, personal issues you might be having. Let's try to stick to the issues at hand. You have the right to have a secret ballot tonight. What I would need in advance in writing is 5 of you to put in writing that you'd like a secret ballot on any of the issues we're going to be discussing tonight. particularly an amendment, for example. If you'd rather have it in a secret ballot, that is your right to do that. I can be overruled in any of the decisions I make tonight by a simple majority vote of you people. You have the right to restrict reconsideration. If we've taken a vote on a particular issue and you wish to restrict reconsideration, the time to do that is after we've taken the vote or after we finish the article, and that means that the issue cannot be taken up again tonight. Any amendments you want to make need to be in writing, and you need to sign the amendment. So any amendments tonight need to be in writing, and you need to sign them. The 10% rule is in effect, and there is no quorum needed for tonight's meeting. I believe that's all the general rules I use. Are there any questions on those rules? Any questions or thoughts you have on them? Then those are the rules I'll be using tonight. Yes, have a question? Come on down, give your name. You want to know what the 10% rule is? Yes. Would someone care to explain the 10% rule? Basically, it's the budget that is presented tonight is presented by the Budget Committee. You cannot change that budget by more than 10%. That's the basic rule. Okay? And there are some conditions attached for contractual situations that the district is under. But basically, you cannot change it by more than 10%.
Point of order?
Yes.
That you can't increase it by more than 10%?
That's correct.
Just increase.
Correct. You can reduce it more than that, but. Any other questions? Okay. I'm now going to go to the handout that you have, has the warrant in it. The front page, it lists members of the school board, budget committee, administration, tonight's suggested agenda that I've changed around already a little bit. And if you go to the second page, it says 2010 Timberlane Regional School District warrant, State of New Hampshire, to the inhabitants of the school district of the towns of Atkinson, Danville, Plastow, and Sandown, New Hampshire, qualified to vote in district affairs. First session of annual meeting, deliberative. You are hereby notified to meet at the Timberlane Performing Arts Center, Greeno Road, Plastow, New Hampshire, on Thursday, the 4th of February, 2010, at 7 p.m. This session shall consist of explanation, discussion, and debate of warrant articles numbers 2 through 7. Warrant articles may be amended subject to the following limitations. A, warrant articles whose wording is prescribed by law shall not be amended. And B, warrant articles that are amended shall be placed on the official ballot for a final vote on the main motion as amended. Second session annual meeting voting. Voting on warrant articles 1 through 7 will be conducted by official ballot to be held in conjunction with the town meeting voting to be held on Tuesday, the 9th of March, 2010. At the town election polls in Atkinson, Danville, Plastow, and Sandown, New Hampshire. Polls in Danville, Plastow, and Sandown will be open from 8 a.m. and remain open until 8 p.m. The polls in Atkinson will be open from 7:30 and remain open till 7:30 p.m. And then I believe it lists where you can go to vote. And then further down is Article 1, election of voters, March 9th only. I'm not going to read them all, but you choose from the following, and that article is what is taken up on Election Day and not taken up tonight. I'm going to move on to Article 2. And as usual, what I will do is I will read the article. I will ask for a motion and a second in order to put it on the floor. On these articles, there'll be an explanation given to you, and after the explanation, we will have a discussion, a debate, amendments, and so forth. Is that understood by all? Okay, then I will read Article 2, the operating budget. Shall the Timberlane Regional School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $61,764,677. Should this article be defeated, the operating budget shall be $61,838,543, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Timberlane Regional School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Note, Warrant Article 2, the operating budget, does not include appropriations proposed under any other warrant articles. Majority vote required, recommended by the school board, 6-0, recommended by the Budget Committee, 5-2. And I might also make note to you that the default budget, if we fall back to that, that number is not an amendable issue tonight, the default budget. But the proposed operating budget is. Is there a presentation on the budget? Yes. Give your name, please, and then make the presentation.
Charlie Belanoff. Testing. Is that working? Okay, good. The budget process began in September, and the various school principals, department heads, and other administrators assessing their needs for the 2010-2011 school year and developed their individual budget requests. These budget requests are presented to the school board and the budget committee. These requests are then extensively reviewed and combined with the district-level budget needs to develop the initial proposed superintendent's budget. Through a collaborative effort among the administration, the school board, and the budget committee members, the proposed budget is analyzed and reviewed to make appropriate reductions in order to minimize the impact on the voters while maintaining and improving the quality programs for the students. The next slide is the budget committee members who we've already introduced earlier. The increase in the operating budget this year from 2009 and 10 to 2010 and 11, the proposed budget that you see in the article is $61,764,677. Last year was $60,728,376, which shows an increase of $1,036,301, which represents a 1.71% increase. Both of these were recommended by the school board and the budget committee. If you look at the next slide, we have a historical budget going from 2006-07 up to the current year, and you can see the increases over the prior years, starting at the 7.66 back in 2006-07 and moving up to this year at the 1.71%. Some of the major budget drivers that you'll see, and they'll be in your packages, are the employee insurance. Okay, that represented, out of the $1 million, $549,635. The New Hampshire Retirement Program, $274,091. Transportation, $219,712. Tuition, $125,000, and then some administrative services. And we call about $1,255,000 of that increase things that we really are by contract and things that we can't negotiate or control. That's just a pretty slide to look at. But we'll leave it up there for a minute if you want. Shows how talented our administrators are. Okay. Okay, the major areas that we talked about, the first one was salaries and benefits, $717,000. Instruction related, $183,158. And our facilities budget actually decreased $187,341. And to break that down a little further, salary and benefits consisted of the salaries that we reduced some salaries with staff reductions. Insurance increase was the $549,635 that you saw previously, and the New Hampshire retirement increase, and then the Social Security, workman's comp, and unemployment that goes along with the $89,000, which are the salary reductions. The instruction-related materials, the $183,158, is tuition for our special education department. Supplies, $118,798. Attendance and truancy, $44,465. Books and software went down, and equipment went down. And then our facilities department, that's a list of how that $187,000 decrease breaks out. I'm not going to go through that, but I'll leave it up there for a minute so you can take a look at it. And the other category, the $322,505, that consisted of transportation contracts that were actually in our special education area. That consisted of travel of some of our students to the schools that they have to go to. School administrative, the SAU, number 55, there was some increases there, $77,000. Replacement equipment, computer services, and our capital reserve account, which we always take out $100,000 and we put it back in every year. So that's just a housekeeping. Again, the recommended budget that you'll see in the article is $61,764,677. If that didn't pass, then we would have the default budget, which is $73,000 higher than the recommended budget. And the next slide is a tax impact of this current budget that's being recommended. And you can see in Atkinson, the tax rate would go up 39 cents. In Danville, I'm not going to do that one. The first one was easy. Plastow, 42 cents. And then Sandown, about $1.13, it looks like. And the next slide just gives you a state average of what all the other budgets in New Hampshire. The state average is $11,135 now to send a student to school. The Timberlane cost is $10,573, and 36 districts spend less than we do, and 125 districts spend more. That would be it, and make sure you vote on Tuesday, March 9th.
Okay, you've heard the presentation on the budget. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, Mr. Moderator, Mark Aciard from Atkinson. I'd like to, with your permission, direct a couple of questions about the budget to the Budget Committee.
Sure.
I notice, ladies and gentlemen of the Budget Committee, in the regular...
Pardon me? We don't need a motion for that. I just start the basic discussion. Yes. Are there any, so you want to have some questions you wish to ask?
Yes, with the moderator's permission.
Go ahead.
I notice in the regular programs, account number 1100, account grouping 1100, I should say, there is a replacement equipment line that we intend to spend $118,000 this year for replacement equipment. I'd like to know what is being replaced for that almost $120,000. Does anyone on the Budget Committee have that information?
We're going to get it.
If you give us a second, sir, I'm sure we can come up with the information.
There's quite a bit of detail here, but a number of the schools attempt to freshen up 1 or 2 classrooms every year. So each of the elementary schools, for the most part, have some classroom chairs and desks. Excuse me. Areas such as that. I see a couple teachers' desks just glancing through some of the detail. This is in Atkinson, 2 teachers' chairs, student desks, a few tables, desks and chairs. In Pollard, for instance, 26 student desks and student chairs, student tables. It's a variety of
That sort of stuff?
Pardon me?
That sort of stuff?
That type of thing.
Okay. Mr. Moderator, a follow-up question?
Sure, go ahead.
I notice the answer is coming from the school, the SAU business administrator. Does anyone on the Budget Committee have this information?
We all have this information.
Okay, here's my question. The numbers on this budget, who prepared the budget?
You can answer that.
The budget is a process, and the process that we follow, and it was, I guess, highlighted briefly in Mr. Balanoff's comments in the beginning, but we begin the process with department folks and building administrators that come forward to a joint meeting of the Budget Committee and the school board, and they make their presentation on their needs for the upcoming year. That information is compounded by Mr. Stokinger and myself. We put that together, and that becomes our first draft that we go to the Budget Committee with, and we begin to work through the process with them. In terms of who actually does the math, does the input into the computer, prepares the reports, that would be the work of the business administrator, and it would be done under my direction.
Well, I understand that process. I used to chair the Budget Committee in Atkinson, but that wasn't exactly what I was asking. I'm asking if anybody, I've seen the process, I've been to and watched meetings. Thank you for whoever does the Danville delivery site, because without those meetings up there, we would have no idea what our Budget Committee is doing with our $63 million of tax money. My question is, state budget law requires that the Budget Committee has sole authority for the preparation of the budget. The school board and their representatives, which in this case would be the superintendent and the business administrator, have no authority over the preparation of the budget. The only people legally in the state of New Hampshire that can move a budget line, change an amount in a budget line, add or subtract a budget line, are the people sitting here. I watched the so-called public hearing where Ms. O'Neill of the Budget Committee laid out the process by which the school board has a written policy that the superintendent writes the budget. I've seen meetings where the superintendent tells the Budget Committee that their job is simply to review and recommend. My problem with this is that you have the organization that spends the budget writing the budget. There's no checks and balances there. This committee has the responsibility to do the due diligence on the numbers they're presented by the superintendent and see that those numbers are needed, to research what is being spent, to see if maybe equipment can be put off till next year or brought forward from next year to this year if there's unexpended amounts remaining in the current year's budget. They have the due diligence to review the teacher's contract before it's put up on a warrant article to make sure that the numbers are accurate before they're presented to the voters. I've seen none of that in here. As a matter of fact, I have a question for everyone sitting up here. How can you present a budget when there's been no legal public hearing on this budget? Can anyone answer that for me?
I believe there was a public hearing on the budget.
I saw that public hearing. I've seen the video of that public hearing on Danville Delivery. The problem is there were only 3 budget committee members at that hearing. That doesn't form a quorum. That budget should never have been read at that meeting. That meeting should not have been allowed to continue. It should have been rescheduled because there was not a quorum there. My question is, how do we get to this point when that point was never met?
That's not a question that I can answer. I'm not sure who wishes to.
Presumably somebody at this table can answer it. We have the school board and the budget committee here.
Would anyone care to address that question?
Well, the answer is that, I guess our interpretation is that we have had a public hearing on the budget.
Okay, and when did you have that meeting? Are you talking about the same meeting,
Yes.
January 12th?
That's correct.
And there were only 3 members of the budget committee at that meeting.
That is correct.
It's a 9-member board. There's 7 members
Yes.
filling seats currently, 3
The
members.
the
is
budget
not a
was
quorum.
presented to the public.
Yes, it was, but there was no quorum there. How can you have a meeting without a quorum?
It is a public hearing.
A public hearing has to be posted 7 days in advance,
And it
and there
was.
has to be a quorum of the board in order to carry out the meeting. I have the state RSAs right here. I'd be happy to read to you if you wish. I want to know how you can present a budget when you have not had a public hearing on it.
Again, we contend that we have had a public hearing on it.
Was it legal?
Yes, we believe it is. It is based on our own, do you want to speak to it?
Well, I don't know what the bylaws are, if you're claiming that there are bylaws, but are you claiming that at
Not bylaws, sir. State revised statutes annotated, state
Okay.
law.
And
not
what's,
school bylaws.
what statute would you like to cite, sir? I don't think this is the time and place to do it, but if you'd like to do that, and the moderator will allow it, that's fine.
The statutes regarding the governing of a town meeting or a school district meeting require that a quorum be present before any business is transacted.
Well-
A quorum is defined as a voting majority of the board. It's read that way in the definitions section of RSA Chapter 32, of RSA Chapter 40, and of RSA Chapter 39.
I think what the superintendent is saying is that the budget was presented at that meeting, was, no votes were taken, as I understand it. It was presented, it was a public hearing. It was presented to the public. If no votes were taken at that meeting, I believe that it was actually a valid meeting.
With all due respect, sir, even you are addressing it as a meeting, and under the state law, you can't have a meeting without a quorum.
Well,
I'll tell you what, I will breeze by that for the moment. The RSA's dealing with the school district, cooperative school district budget committees say that the school district, cooperative school district budget committees follow the same budget laws towns do, which is RSA Chapter 32. RSA Chapter 32 vests the preparation of the budget in the budget committee and states that the budget committee shall present to the school board a budget prepared by itself, numbers verified. This budget committee signed an MS-27 before the budget was even finalized with the final numbers that were on there coming from the school board. I'd like to know how that happens. How can you vouch for numbers? How can you tell the state that you have prepared a budget and you can vouch for these numbers and their veracity when the numbers aren't even final yet? And this is a question for the budget committee, sir, because they're the ones that signed the MS-27.
Give your name, please.
Brenda Kopp, Sandown. I just want to make it perfectly clear that everybody on this budget committee did not sign that form. In fact, it says 5-2 on the vote on the tally on warrant article on the operating budget, and I, for one, never voted on that budget.
Can anyone that signed it answer my question?
I would have to say that when we sign that form, where the budget is finalized with us, we have the final numbers. The number that
So you have
that you
taken a
see,
vote to pass the budget as written?
the number that you see here
Mhm.
is the number that we look at before we sign that form. The 61 million that you're looking at here, that's the number that we see before we sign it.
I
And
would
we
like
have
to
all
make an
the-
amendment.
We have all the documentation
Okay.
before we sign it.
Do you have a particular form that needs to be filled out for an amended?
No,
Okay.
No.
but you need to put it in writing and sign it.
I would be happy to do that for you, sir.
Yep.
Give me 1 second here to pull it out. Last year's spending for the school district, exclusive of fund transfers, the actual spending for 2008 was $53,816,390. What I would like to do is take last year's spending. I'm explaining, before I make my amendment, I'm explaining how I arrived at the number I'm about to state. Take last year's spending, add the governmental inflation rate of 2.7% to account for increased costs, and then subtract out the increases in the teacher contract because that's coming under a separate warrant article 2 articles hence, which leaves us with a number from last year's spending with inflationary increases per the United States government, brings us to a total of $56,760,388. I hereby move to amend Article 2, the operating budget, to $56,760,388.
Did you sign that?
I will sign this.
Okay,
Can I talk to that for
just a second. Want to bring it up here, sir?
Yeah.
No, I believe so. You'd have to ask him. Charlie, I'm not going to interpret what he said. You'd have to get clarification from him.
Got to do that so I know what it is.
We have an amendment, proposed amendment to reduce the budget to $56,760,388. Is there a second to the amendment? Is there a second to the amendment? Give your name, please.
Glenn Mullen. I'd like to second the amendment.
Okay. We have an amendment on the floor now to reduce the budget to that figure. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Yes, give your name.
Elizabeth Costa Plastow. Mr. LaSalle, could you tell us how that will affect our school community?
How much of a decrease is it?
Just under 4 million, although fund transfers are required in the budget.
It's a little bit hard to respond because the numbers are incorrect, the logic is incorrect, and therefore the conclusions are incorrect. But a magnitude cut of that type, I did a what-if of a 10% budget cut, and I think that's about what we're talking here. And it would require the cutting of, this is a scenario, 40 teaching positions at $50,000 each, 20 under regular ed, 20 assistant positions, paraeducator positions at $15,000 each. If we cut 50% of all repair and maintenance under regular ed, 50% of supplies, 50% of books, 100,000 of 132 for software. If we cut all new equipment, if we cut 200 of 242 of computers and computer type of equipment, if we cut all salary raises, if we cut 7 special education teachers at $50,000 each, if we cut 20 additional paraeducators at $15,000 each, if we cut out of special education all replacement computers, if we took an undesignated cut of 100,000 in athletics, either going to pay to play or reducing teams, if we cut a guidance position, a psychologist position, if we reduce under speech 50% our supplies, our books 100%, if we cut 50% of all supplies for the library, 100% of all books for the library, 100% of all equipment for the library, 100% of everything for audiovisual, if we cut 100% of all travel, if we cut 2 administrative positions, if we cut 2 office secretarial positions, if we cut Office of the Principal supplies by 50%, if we cut 100% of all new equipment under the Office of the Principal, if we cut replacement equipment by 50% under Office of the Principal, if we cut supplies under other administrative by 50%, if we cut 3 custodial positions, if we cut 40,000 out of 140,000 for maintenance and repair under custodial, if we cut custodial supplies by 25%, if we cut new equipment by 100%, if we cut replacement equipment for custodial by 33%, if we cut high school transportation, and those requiring transportation required them to pay $200 per year, if we cut athletic transportation by 20%, if we cut all field trips for students, if we cut music transportation by 50%, if we cut under computer services the leasing for our software by 20%, and if we cut all new computers 100%, if we cut 146,000 out of 600,000 that's there for building improvements, that would put a cut of 5,676,000. We wouldn't be there yet. We wouldn't have reached the level of cuts.
Mr. Moderator, a question to that?
Any other comments? Yes, sir. Give your name again, please.
Mark Asiart Atkinson. Mr. LaSalle, with all due respect, I lost track about 80% of the way through your list, and according to your budget, which I have here, I obtained from the SAU last week, you just cut $17 million out of the budget with your list. I'm only asking for a cut of 4. Here's my question then. Did you have all of that stuff you just listed this past year, 2009-2010 school year?
The increase to our budget is 1.7%.
I understand that, sir. Did you have all that stuff this year? All the stuff you just named, was it in the budget this year?
I don't understand the question.
Okay, let me try to rephrase it.
I'm buying new paper. We bought paper this year, if that's what you're asking.
Your entire list that you just named for all the people sitting here, was all that stuff accomplished, done, paid for, in the budget? Did you have all of that stuff available to you this year?
That is correct.
2009,
That's correct.
2010 school year. According to your budget, you spent Oh, I moved from the total page, I'm sorry. According to your budget, exclusive of fund transfers this year, you spent $55,590,000 in change. That's what you spent to accomplish everything that the school district did this year. You spent $55 million in change. You just gave us a list that cuts over $17 million out of your budget. I'm not asking for any of that. I'm asking for you to spend what you spent last year, plus the federal government's cost of living raise, and you're telling me that you would have to cut $17 million out of your budget to do that? How does that math work?
That's not my math, sir. That's yours, and it's incorrect.
Okay, tell me what's incorrect.
First of all, I indicated that the cuts that I indicated to you in that last list that you lost track of represented $5,700,000, not the $17 million that you're citing. The other thing is that the expenditures that you're citing, the numbers that you're using are incorrect. Second of all, it makes no logical sense, nor is it possible to run a budget where you choose to include certain things and exclude other things. You're excluding fund transfers. You cannot exclude the fund transfers. The fact of the matter is that looking at expenditures only is really it is actually a foolish logic. Every time a child comes forward and buys a hot lunch, our expenditures go up. Now, given that the child's family pays for that lunch, but they go up. You cannot look at just one half of an equation of the budget without looking at the other. You must look at the full balance of the equation, which includes expenditures. It also includes revenues, and you have to look at both sides of that. The numbers that were presented to you this evening are accurate and true numbers. They are audited independently. They are accepted by the DRA, and they are the budget. The budget is going up $1 million, which is 1.71%. Your logic and your numbers are both wrong.
I think, with all due respect, I think you're missing. The budget is up 1.71% over what was proposed last year. I'm not talking about what was proposed because you spent $4 million less than what was proposed last year. I'm talking about what it actually cost you last year to run this school district.
Do you want to answer that?
According to your budget, which I got from the SAU this week, including the fund transfers, your expenditure total for the school year is $58,690,463. So that's the money expended to run the entire district for a year. And you're telling me that by sticking with this number, or even one reasonably close to it, you can't do that in the upcoming year?
That is
How about
correct.
the 2% raises for the 55 top administrators? People in the private sector aren't getting raises this year. We're lucky to keep our jobs. There's people in this audience that are in danger of losing their homes. And you guys are going to put 2% raises on, and you put it in the default budget. So either way you get it. How do you put raises in the default budget?
They are
when
not in the
school board
default
didn't
budget.
Excuse me.
They are not in the default budget.
In your PowerPoint presentation here, it says that the SAU costs, the raises, 2% raises for the administrators are in there.
The raises for the administrators are not in the default budget.
It was stated at the public hearing, for want of a better word, public hearing. Sir, I'm sorry, I don't mean to take your time.
Yep. I'm going to go to this lady first, and then you, sir.
She always beats me out.
Michelle O'Neill, Danville. First of all, we're still in the 2009-2010 budget year. That money is not totally expended. I think maybe the number you're quoting, the $55 million, is for the 2008-2009 budget year, which closed on June 30th, 2009. We're still in the budget process. When we begin this budget process, legal RSA states that we take the last year's operating budget as voted by the voters and start there to build this year's budget, and that's exactly what we did.
Yes, sir. Give your name.
Sean O'Neill from Danville.
Are you guys related or something?
Yeah. That was the point I was going to make as well, is that how can you talk about closing a particular year when you still have roughly several more months left in it? I mean, it's still rolling on. I know from history of dealing with budgets that you usually pay year of end expenses, so those kind of line items will be paid at that time. One of the things that I heard in your argument is that you are chastising this school district for returning surplus money back to the voters and using that as a rationale for you to cut further. That right there is showing the fiscal responsibility of this embodiment, so that when they have to budget things and they get insurance cost of 22% from their vendors that says this is what it's going to cost, they negotiate it down to a 13% cap on that. They have to budget for that 13. What if it comes in and we don't have that amount of money in there? What are they going to do? So when that bill comes in and it's, for my sake of argument, it's a 5%, the delta from that should be sitting in that line item and is returned at the end of the year for the voters in the form of surplus. If Mr. LaSalle and the school board were to take that surplus and move it around to a variety of different things, then I could support your argument. But then this board returned, I believe, as I heard before, is a $1.6 million from last year, Jordan?
Yes.
1.6 million, and you're going to sit there and chastise them for giving $1.6 million back to the voters. That's not fair, that's not right, and I'd like to move the question forward.
He's asked to move the questions. You sure you want to do this? Yes. She was raising her hand. I didn't think she wanted to dispute what you said, but
We deal with that at home.
I'm sure you will. Okay, the question's been asked to be moved. I'm going to move the question based on your applause. I'm just going to ask for a voice vote. Those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The amendment's defeated. Will you?
Reconsideration on this amendment.
Okay. There's been a motion made to restrict reconsideration on this particular amendment. Okay, you're a little early. Can we?
Yeah.
What I need to do now, in case anybody else has questions, I want to go back to the operating budget and see if there's any other people who wish to speak to the issue. What's on the amendment? I've been chastised myself.
Is it your wife?
I'm not going to get catty now, are we back and forth here? No, what happened was, we took a vote to move the question. Okay, so we voted on whether or not you wanted to move the question. So now I'm going to take a vote on the amendment. You decided you wanted to move it. So now I'm going to take a vote on whether or not you're plus or minus on the amendment itself. Those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Excuse me. Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. It's quite obvious the House is one way, so I don't want to hear any more about
Get
that.
a secret ballot if we have 5 people to request a secret ballot.
It's too late now for a secret ballot. You have to, if you wish to take a secret ballot on any vote tonight, I need to know that in advance of the vote. Okay? And 5 people have to put that in writing. Okay? So we've already taken an official vote, so it's kind of after the fact to say now we want to take a secret ballot. Okay, getting back to the operating budget, Article 2. Are there any other questions on it? Any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make one comment.
Yes.
I feel like I'm very happy that you came forward because...
Did you give your name, please?
Yeah. My name is Chris Herney, and I'm from Atkinson, and I have to say I'm very happy that he came forward because I'm finding out, you know, I know there's a lot of work that goes into a budget, but I was adding up in my head what you were saying, and it did come to a lot more than 5 million. It came, in my head, it came to about 15 million. So I know that there probably are mostly people here from the schools, and I feel like I can't go beyond a certain point. I don't understand these meetings. I don't know what amendment it's too late for me now, but I feel the voters are getting a budget rammed down their throats because everyone's going to go vote, and they're going to vote for this budget or it's something higher. I've never heard of such a thing. I think, what did we spend? I don't know what we spent in 2008. But I know personally, I haven't had a raise in 2 years, and I don't have a raise for another year. And I've had to work with lowering budgets. And where I work, we've had to lower our budget every year. So, you know, I know there's some areas where we can't, where costs go up, but there's other areas where we have to go down. And frankly, I think it was thrown out there that administrators are getting a raise. I'm sorry, no. Why should that come out of my pocket when I don't even get a raise? So I'm sorry if I'm not very popular here tonight, but I'm very upset because what are we voting on? Nothing but a big budget.
Yes, ma'am. Give your name, please.
Brenda Kopp, Sandown. I would just like all of you to think of one thing. When any budget you're given back a surplus, and year after year, you have a surplus. This past year of over $1 million. I'm a Budget Committee member. I have been on the Sandown Budget Committee for 3 years, and this year I'm completing my chairmanship. I've been to every municipality budget workshop I could do, right to know everything. And I'm telling you right now, when somebody gives you back a surplus out of a budget, they're not a good guy. It means that you were overtaxed and they over-budgeted the amount they did. That's why they had a surplus.
Yes, sir. Give your name.
Mark Aciart, Atkinson. I apologize to everyone for seeming to monopolize the mic. With all due respect to Mr. O'Neill, I have no problems with somebody returning a surplus. If there is a surplus, that's exactly where it should go, to the people who paid it in the first place. I do have a question for this board. I saw the slide a few slides ago that said that Timberlane's cost per pupil was roughly $10,500 per kid. There was... Right there, yeah. $10,573 per child, and the state average is 11.1. I do have one question for this board. I understand that that follows a state funding formula. Is that correct? There's some formula to arrive at that number?
Yes,
Okay.
this is calculated by the state. It's on the State Department of Education
Right,
website.
and that omits some budgeted costs of the district. Is that correct?
For all districts, so it's
Yes.
comparable to every other district in the state and the state average.
Okay. Here's my problem with that number. It masks the true cost of this budget. You're asking for a budget of $61,764,000, and you have just over 4,500 kids in the district, right? Or just under 4,600, however you want to call it.
Around 4,500.
Divide the number of kids by the budget, and you come out with $14,500 per kid. $14,500 per kid. I'm a Timberlane graduate. 30 years ago, last June, I graduated from Timberlane. And when I graduated, Timberlane was one of the highest academically rated school districts in this state. Timberlane was a model school. As a matter of fact, the high school, for those that don't know, was built in 1966 as a model school. It was one of the first schools to have open-air courtyards, glassed windows, wallpaper. These were innovations back then. It was a great school to graduate from, and I got a more than adequate education. So I'm sorry to say I put 4 kids through this school district in the last 10 years. The quality of education once you hit the middle school and the high school has dropped dramatically. The elementary schools in this district are still fantastic. Atkinson Academy, under the direction of Mrs. Kathy Deotis, is outstanding. Great attention to the kids. However, we have a middle school principal who stated to me when a girl passed into the 9th grade, she graduated 8th grade with 3 Fs and a D- in core subjects. And the principal of the middle school looked at me and said, she'll catch it up in high school. This is an educational
Sir,
philosophy.
I'm going to stop you for 1 second. I want you to get to the budget.
Certainly. My
Get
point
to it.
Certainly.
Okay.
My point is that we're turning out a mediocre product in this district compared to some other schools around, public and private. And we're charging $14,500 per kid to do it. That's a ton of money. I can send my child on tuition to Pinkerton for $8,900 a year. I can send them to Central Catholic for just over $9,000. If they're in middle school up to grade 8, I can send them to Hampstead Academy in Atkinson for $12,000, where they'll get a stellar education. And I'm being asked to pay $14,500. And what I want for this, if I'm going to be forced to pay it, is a quality product for my money. And I don't feel that I'm getting it here. I don't feel that the budget warrants the quality that's coming out.
Yes, sir.
Danville. Part of the quality that this gentleman just talked about is which is something that was well defined by the school district when you first started on out, which is that educating a child is a commitment not just by the school district, but also of a parent, both parents. If your child is not educated to where you think they should be, then you need to not just look at the school district 100%, but you should be looking at yourself as well and put yourself under the same microscope. Mrs. Kopp would disappeared, but anyway, one of the things that she talked about is returning the surplus to the voters. One of the things that a municipality has, such as the town of Danville, we have what we call as an unreserved fund. It's money that we have inside, that's outside of our budget, that we still have to account for in a financial audit, that is used for all kinds of different kinds of things that would come up unbeknownst for a budget, and then we would have to turn around and petition the court if we were to expend that. I do believe, with conversations that I've had with the administrators, that the SAU does not have such a privilege. Their budget, they have 0 unreserved funds for something like a high school septic system that failed. They were able to move funds around on the order of, I believe, $700,000 to $800,000 so that our kids could go to school and be able to flush a toilet. That is not comparing apples and apples. You're going to pair apples and apples, let's get them the same fruit.
Would anyone new care to speak? Yes, sir. Give your name.
Hi, my name's John Doobie, Plastow. I want to speak to, I'm not going to speak to the budget. I know that's what we're supposed to do, but I can't let this go. I have to speak to Mr. Akiar's accusations. I've been a member of this community for 23 years. I've been a teacher in this district for 23 years, and I'm proud to call myself a Timberlane educator. And I will not, sir, have you diminish or demean my colleagues who come in here every day, work as hard as they can with students that we don't raise to do our very best to educate them, all right? These colleagues of mine, if you come to the high school parking lot at 6 o'clock in the morning when I get here, or you hang around until 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 o'clock at night, grading student papers, developing lesson plans, helping kids, which is what we do. Then you talk to me about the quality that these educators provide. Don't you dare speak ill of people that you know nothing about. And with all due respect, you can put that in your blog.
Okay, I really, we're kind of getting off on a tangent here that is not really why we're here. Right now, we're on the operating budget. And there isn't much we can do about personal opinions about whether it's a good school, bad school, or in between. We're here tonight to discuss the operating budget, so please, let's do that and not get into personal observations of the quality of the school. Yes, sir.
My name is Kelly Ward from Sandown. I just wanted to know, when they do give the money back, where does that go? Just, I don't understand the process. It's just a
Okay,
simple
good question.
It's not that it really goes. What it means is that you have less money that you have to raise in that following year. So if there's $1 million, say it's 60 million, if there's $1 million in surplus, then you only have to raise the 59, you don't have to raise the 60.
roll it over.
That's correct.
Okay.
Are there any other questions on the budget?
Hi, John Sherman from Plastow, and Barry, it's just a point of order. I thought I heard someone say that the votes on this warrant article were recorded incorrectly. Is that what Ms. Kopp said? That it really wasn't 5-2, or did I misunderstand what she said? The 5-2 is the correct tally?
That's not true. She's not here. It was 42. There's 7 voting members, 1 member was not there. That makes 42. Same kind of math we use to calculate.
No, there was a school board member there.
You're questioning,
Mrs.
John, at the end of the budget, what the recommended by the Budget Committee number is?
Yeah, she said it was incorrect. I'd just like to know if it was incorrect and if it can be corrected.
Okay, yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, if I may. Mrs. Kopp was not at that meeting. We have a sitting school board member on the Budget Committee. The 7 people in attendance voted. The vote was 5-2. The missing member was Mrs. Kopp.
Right, so it was 6 members of the Budget Committee and the 1 school board rep. Thank you. I guess I would also suggest it might have been a good idea if the school board had reconsidered this warrant article when they had more than 6 people present. That would have reflected a vote of the full board, just a suggestion.
Any other comments on Article 2, the operating budget?
First of all, maybe next year you can get the mic over there too, so we don't have to run so far. I just need, I'm Jim Foucault from Atkinson. I just need a little bit more explanation, because I don't think it was enough for the gentleman that asked, when you give money back, does that have any effect of getting the tax rate lower? And how do you go about, if we gave back $1 million plus, how does that affect the tax rate? In other words, Atkinson just had the deliberative session last week, and we're worrying about, we don't care what the budget is, how much, how does it affect the taxpayer? How much do I have to pay in real estate taxes? The town of Atkinson is like $2.54 a thousand. The driver is here, the Timberlane School District, of over $9 in change. If we gave back $1 million plus, how does that decrease the tax rate for the different towns in the area? Can anyone explain that? Is it done locally, or does it have to come out of Concord?
Somebody want to tackle that? Go ahead.
When we close our books on June 30th each year, we go through an audit, then we submit reports to the Department of Revenue Administration along with the Department of Education. This past year, we had a $1.6 million surplus. That means that for this year, we ask from the 4 towns $1.6 million less than if we had 0 surplus. So we have $1.6 million in our checking account on June 30th. So that means we use it on July 1st, if you will, and therefore we ask for less from the towns. So yes, that keeps your tax rate down to some degree.
I'm missing something here then. That money is strictly what I'll call mad money in your checking account that you can use as you need be?
No.
No?
Okay, well, For 2010, we have, and this, I'll refer to page 7 in the handout of the financial section so that everybody can follow. And there's been a number of misrepresentations of this information. But if you look at the middle column, our 2010 budget, where you are now in the 09-10 school budget, our budget was $60,728,000. When we started this year on July 1st, we already had $1.6 million in our checking account from leftover from last year. So that means we only needed $59.1 million to make the $60.7 million. So therefore, we needed to ask the towns for less money. Sometimes it's referred to as giving it back. We don't write a check to the towns and then get a check. So, you know what I mean? So it's in our checking account, so we need to ask for a little less from the towns and the state and so forth. We get revenue from various places.
I'm following you. I only have one other comment, Mr. Moderator, if you'll indulge me.
Yes.
And that is, there is the different warrant articles that are here, especially on the budget. And I would like to see that when we have to approach something like $61 million, and we have 2 members of the Budget Committee that did not want to sign it or voted against it, an explanation on why they voted against it. I don't know if that would be in order, but I think it would behoove everyone in here to know why 2 members voted no.
That's up to the 2 members. If they wish to voice their opinions, fine. If
To
not,
entertain the thought, though, if it was brought as a motion, to have them give the reason why.
it's up to them whether, even if you make a motion, it's up to them whether they want to or not. You can't force someone to speak.
Okay.
I can
Yes, sir, give your name and then speak to the mic.
Len Mullen. I voted against the budget. Sorry. And the reason I did is because the Budget Committee did not prepare the budget. When we went before Mr. LaSalle, during the course of the year, we asked for some information with regard to contractual obligations and legal obligations, which he consistently did not provide. I felt at the end he was just putting up numbers, and we had no information to substantiate what he was saying. So for me to sign that budget would have just been accepting everything that he said without any proper background.
Well, based on that comment, I'll just give you my personal comment. And that is, something's wrong. And without getting into personalities, in the initial comment about did you have a quorum for a public meeting, and the silence was deafening up here. And I would challenge legal counsel, they should have jumped right on it. Thank you.
It must be you, sir. Try giving your name.
Bill Bennett, that's not working. Hello? Bill Bennett Atkinson. Is that really working?
Yes, it is, sir.
Okay. That comment from Mr. Mullen is a very damning comment. I'm surprised.
Can you turn his mic up a little bit, please?
About testing?
That's
Okay.
better.
The comment that Mr. Mullen made is a very damning comment that surprises me, and I'm not happy with it. But the reason I came to the microphone was, let me first just verify my understanding that the administrators are getting a 2.2% salary increase. Is that correct?
2%.
Beg your pardon?
2%.
2.0?
2%, yes.
Is that both the SAU administrators and the school administrators?
Some of the SAU administrators, the superintendent and the assistant superintendent received no raise.
I see. I've been looking through the budget line items. I can't find where that is, where that line is in this budget. Can you tell me?
The line for?
Where that, the superintendent's salaries?
That, I'm an SAU employee, so it wouldn't be in the Timberlane budget.
Does this district have no control over the district?
Both boards sit at the SAU board. So the
But
Board of
voters don't-
Hampstead, the Board of Hampstead and the Board of Timberlane sit together and make up the SAU board.
Okay, but the voters of the two districts don't get a say in that then, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
There is a public hearing on it, but there is not a vote on it, the way there is a deliberative session here tonight, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, the school boards of each of the two districts have the vote.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, do other administrators within the district get an increase this year?
In Timberlane, the Timberlane administrators do get a raise of 2%, as I indicated.
Okay. Can you tell me where that is and what line item that's
Can you
in?
tell what line item that is, please?
If I can answer both questions. On the very last line item on page 4 of the financial section is the SAU budget. And the SAU is governed by RSA 194. So after the public hearing of the SAU budget, it's divided through a formula between, in this case, SAU 55, between Timberlane Regional and Hampstead School Districts. And once that public hearing is finalized, those apportioned amounts move into the individual district budgets. So that's what you see on the bottom of page 4.
Thank you.
Account 2320. The administrative salaries are spread throughout the functions within here. You'll see it's the first line item of various functions with account 111. So for instance, it's the very first line item in the budget where you have 1100, which is regular education, and then 111 is the administrative salaries, which don't show there. If you go to the next section, 1200, which is special ed, you'll see administrative salaries in there. So every line item has the 3-digit budget code we call the object code. 111 are administrative salaries.
Okay. Give me a moment. So, if this body wanted to reduce those, reduce the salaries so that there was no increase for administrators, they would have to move to amend each line item of administrative salaries. Is that correct?
Superintendent?
It's a bottom line budget, so that you could amend the budget by that amount, but then it would still be up to the school board in terms of the actual spending of that money.
Is there any way, and I'm not going to make this motion, but I want everyone here to understand what rights they have and what they don't. Is there any way that this body can tell you people, if they didn't want anyone to receive a salary increase this year, is there a way they could tell you that?
For the sake of this meeting, sir, you can make an amendment to reduce the budget by X number of dollars, and you can make your wishes known where you'd like the money to be taken from. But then it's up to the school boards to make their decisions on where they want to spend the money. Yes, ma'am.
Michelle O'Neill, Danville. This is an area we did speak a lot about at one of our meetings. One of the reasons we went forward with the 2% was because Timberlane is one of the few districts that the administrative staff is not a part of a union. And they're still being paid below salary compared to the other districts. And with the teacher contract on the board and so forth, we really want to keep these people happy and in the district, and we thought 2% was fair for that reason. We did have a lengthy discussion. We talked about making it 1%, but at the same time, we're increasing all their insurance this year. Their deductibles are all going up. Their co-pays are going up. So really, this 2% increase is going to be a wash. It's not like they're going to get extra money in their pocket, because now it's going to go out of pocket for all of their co-pays and so forth. So there was discussion about this at the budget meeting, and that's the reason we left it in there.
Okay, thank you. I'm a selectman in the town of Atkinson. We are experiencing those same insurance and other increases that hit our employees in their pocketbooks. It's painful. But we have held the line on salaries for 2 years now. It just, in these times, it's very reasonable to expect to have to make sacrifices for those of us who still have income, to make allowances for those who don't. We just really have to control our costs very carefully. So, well, you've told me pretty much what I want to know, but I just wanted these people to understand how they would go about telling you that this, if they didn't want it to happen, they could get it not to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Give your name.
Mark ACR at Atkinson. I want to apologize to everybody here, including the body, because I understand that there are 3 occupations in this country that you cannot criticize in any way: education and public safety. However, my problem with the budget is I'm looking at the proposed budget worksheet. I believe this was a handout at the public hearing. And it has first draft, second draft, third draft, fourth draft numbers. As I understand it, these numbers were brought forth to the Budget Committee by Superintendent LaSalle at each successive meeting. You had 4 meetings throughout the fall, winter, whatever. And at each meeting, he presented you a budget with these numbers. And each one was a successive reduction. The first draft shows an increase of 3.43%. Second one is 2.99. Third draft was only 1.95. And then this final draft, which we're talking about today, is 1.71. Is that correct? Okay. So I have to go to Mr. Mullen's comment. Did anyone on the Budget Committee do due diligence and research the superintendent's proposed budget to go in and find out what items are being expended under particular line items, and are these particular expenses for this year needed as opposed to wanted? Are a particular increase, is it something that has been, say, put off for 3 years and this year is the year we've got to do it? Or is it something that we just want to do this year and we could really in tight times maybe push it off a year? Did you guys, and I guess what I'm asking you is, did you do the Budget Committee's job, or did you accept the numbers that were presented to you? Because throughout all of these revisions, I see the Budget Committee's numbers are exactly the same as the school district's. There's no changes anywhere down the line. And you guys signed an MS-27 before there were even numbers on it, and it's exactly the numbers that the
Sir, I'm going to cut
superintendent
you off
presented.
at this point.
Well,
Again.
I asked a question, sir.
I'm going to comment on what you're saying.
Okay.
You're getting back to the procedure that led up to this point.
Right.
I'm stopping discussion on that. If you have a question on the budget as presented, then ask it.
Can I
I'm
ask a
not going to go
question on the
back
numbers,
into
then?
this procedure that took place for the last 6 months.
Fine. Can I ask a question on Mr. LaSalle?
Then ask a specific question about the budget.
Okay. Mr. LaSalle, or Mr. Stokinger? Stokinger? I'm sorry. You said that the 1.6 million is rolled over to the current year, right? The surplus is rolled over?
The surplus from June 30th of '09 is used in this current '09-10 school year.
Okay, and you don't know what the surplus is yet for this year?
Well, this is February, we
Right.
end in June.
So we're
I'm
voting...
not that good.
No, I get that, I get that. My question is, I had that page here, hold on. On your revenue page, the budget we're voting on is 61 million and change. You show proposed revenues of 18,100,000 and an appropriation to the town, 4 towns, of 43.5 million, totaling up to the proposed budget. So what you're telling me is that if there is a surplus at the end of this year of, say, $1 million, this appropriation amount will decrease by $1 million?
Well, if you look at the top of the revenue page, I'm projecting for budgeting purposes for tonight a surplus of $900,000.
Right.
Unreserved fund balance, the very first line in the revenue page.
900,000. So that's what you're projecting as a revenue for this year?
As of a couple weeks ago, before the public hearing, yes.
Okay. And if your revenue should come in at, say, 1.6?
Then we'd be 700,000 to the better.
And you would decrease the appropriation to the towns by that amount?
That's correct. We, by law, cannot keep a dollar of the surplus.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else care to speak?
Mr. Moderator, could
Yes.
I make a comment on one or two previous comments?
Sure.
It was said that the Budget Committee signed the MS-27 without any figures on it. The Budget Committee, those members that were here the night of the public hearing, signed the MS-27, completed that evening. The other members signed it the following Tuesday when we had a meeting. That MS-27 has not changed by one digit since that time. It was posted within a couple days at the end of that week. There was another point, but it escaped me. Thank you.
Okay. And again, I'm not going to allow any more discussion on the procedure that got us up to this point. We're here tonight to discuss the budget, and that's it. Yes, sir.
How you doing? James Foley from Atkinson. First of all, I know you all have a thankless job and you're working very hard to keep the tax dollars low. Thank you. But I just have a simple question. You have $1.6 million roughly that you gave back last year, and you have a $1,036,000 increase this year. Is there any reason why you guys couldn't just hold the numbers from last year to this year without having an increase? Because you got roughly $500,000 that you're going to be giving back. So even if you went to a default budget, you guys are still going to have a $500,000 plus. It would just appear to me.
Yes, Superintendent?
Yes, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. The numbers, obviously, when you're talking about a 60 million plus budget, are very large. When you're talking about, a $600,000 up to $1 million, you're talking about 18 months prior, in some cases, budgeting to within 1.5% in an industry where we have a lot of unknowns, and some of those unknowns are very familiar, like energy costs. We also have some costs associated with special education that are totally outside our controls. For instance, if a court placement happens, we have to pick up the cost of that court placement, although it's done in the courts and not done in the schools. Some of those can be $100,000 at a time, up to $200,000 at a time. So we have a lot of very strong fluctuating cost. And so really to be within that $600,000, within that $1 million range is really pretty fine budgeting, to be honest with you. I know the numbers are large and it doesn't appeal that way and it doesn't seem that way, but that is actually cutting it quite close.
Did I just hear correctly, though, that you have a $900,000 surplus almost right now?
We are anticipating, based on what we do as projection data. So we've been following our energy costs, for instance, which are going up but not going up dramatically. We have been following our special education costs. And so based on those items, those trend items that we have, we're able to make some reasonable estimations in terms of what it might be. But again, it could be several $100,000 less than that. It could be $700,000 more than that. It's our best effort at this time for the purposes.
I don't have a crystal ball either.
The question is always, what is the tax impact going to be? So in order to try to be able to give as best an answer to that question, we give our best estimate. We put the dipstick in at this time and see how our expenditures are going at this time.
And if you were to go to a default budget, how bad of an impact is that going to hit you?
Well, this year the default is actually higher than the budget, so we would ask that everybody would support the budget. There's an additional amount of money in there that clearly is not called for in our budget.
Thank you, and again, I thank you all for your work.
Thank you.
Anyone else care to speak? Anyone else? Then I'll cut the discussion on the budget. The budget, as presented to you on Article 2, will be given to you on Election Day for your voting.
I'd like to make a motion to restrict consideration.
Please speak to the mic.
Michelle O'Neill, I'd like to make a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 2, the operating budget.
She's making a motion to restrict reconsideration. Is there a second? Right here, we have a second. Okay. Does everyone understand what that means? She's making a motion to restrict reconsideration, which means if this amendment, this motion passes, you would not be able to rediscuss the budget again tonight.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
Doesn't that motion have to be made after the vote?
There's no vote tonight. No, there's no vote tonight. At this particular meeting, we have a presentation, we have a discussion, an explanation, you can make amendments, and then after that, we move on. And in this case, she wishes to restrict reconsideration so that later on in the meeting, someone can get up and say, I want to go back and discuss the budget again. So that is the motion on the floor, to restrict reconsideration. Are there any questions on that? Okay, then I'll call for a vote. Those in favor of the motion to restrict reconsideration, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We have a motion to restrict reconsideration on Article 2, the operating budget. Moving on to Article 3, Timberlane Teachers Association. Shall the Timberlane Regional School District vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Timberlane Teachers Association and the Timberlane Regional School Board, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits? We have 3 columns: cost distribution, and then 2010-11 and 2011-12. Salaries, step through 15 years of service, 2010 to 2011, $414,184, 2011-2012, $792,444. Longevity, I'm going to read them off as year 2 and year 3. It seems to be a lot easier for me to do that. Longevity, year 2, $6,000. Year 3, $87,900. One-time 2.5% payment, steps through 14 years of service. Year 2, $256,919. Year 3, minus $256,919. Insurance, minus $173,955 in year 2. Year 3 is 0. Professional development, year 2 is 0. Year 3, $2,500. FICA, year 2, $51,798. Year 3, $47,692. New Hampshire State Retirement, year 2, $54,337. Year 3, $50,030. Totals, year 2, $609,284. Year 3, $723,646. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $609,284 for the upcoming fiscal year. Such sum representing the additional cost attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at the current staffing levels in accordance with the most recent collective bargaining agreement. Majority vote required. The cost of the current insurance plan as required by law is budgeted in the 2010-2011 operating budget. The negotiated contract includes an increase from a $10 to $20 copay and an increase to the teacher's portion of the insurance premium that results in a reduction of health insurance costs by $173,955 in year 2, and increased savings to the district in year 3 as shown above. Note, pursuant to RSA 273-A:12, if approved, the terms of this collective bargaining agreement, including the pay plan but excluding the cost of living increases, will continue in force and effect until a new agreement is reached. Recommended by the school board 6-0. recommended by the Budget Committee 6-1. Is there a motion from the floor? Yes, give your name, please.
Elizabeth Costa,
Is
Plastow.
there a second? Yes, give your name over here.
Arlene Champy.
Arlene Champy. Is there a presentation to be made on this? Yes, Superintendent.
Thank you. I have for your display just a comparative of the previous contract and then the current contract, and I just wanted to, for some clarity, explain some unusual notations that you see in the contract. The first one is that the 2009-2010 is actually the first year of the contract, which is actually the current year that we're in now. We were unable to come to terms in time for the political process last year, so teachers have been operating with no contract, and they've been operating this year under the terms of the previous contract. The second year of the contract, as you see, calls for an increase of $609,000, and I just wanted to explain a little bit about that because it does represent some new ground. The $414,000 that you see, and as most people know, teachers begin at a low salary, and there's a 14-step plan that they go on, step increases. And that provides for those teachers that are in year 1 through 14 to receive their step. Further down, you'll notice that there's a 2.5% step, a 2.5% one-time payment that goes to teachers that are not receiving a step increase. So teachers are either in year 1 through 14 receiving a step, or they are above step 14, in which case they receive a 2.5% pay increase in the second year. Highlighted there and also noted in the Warren article is that negotiations, teachers are picking up a larger portion of their health insurance. We have begun a process of retiring the most expensive plan that we had, and we have also gone to higher co-pays, actually across all employees, which netted a savings to district of $173,955, and it nets out that cost of $609,000, which I think if you look at previous contracts, really does compare favorably. The third year of the contract, the $792,000, provides actually for 2 steps. It gives the steps that their teachers are entitled to in year 3, and it makes up the loss of step in step 1 so that they get equated with everyone else statewide where their years of service equates to the step that they're on. So they make up the step that was lost during this current year. During that year, however, teachers that are off step will not receive a raise. I would like to also note that there is no COLA built into this contract, so that the pay scale that was in existence under the previous contract remains in existence through the 3 years of this contract. So a teacher starting 2 years from now will make exactly what a teacher made 2 years ago. So there is no COLA increase to the raise whatsoever. One other enhancement in the third year is that there is an enhancement to longevity, and that goes to those teachers that are off step again, those teachers that have more than 15 years of experience. So that being said, that is my presentation on the teacher's contract.
Are there any comments, questions, or discussion on Article 3? Any comments or questions? There being none, as printed, it'll be on your ballot Election Day. Article 4.
May I make a motion? I'd like to make a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 3, Timberlane Teachers Association contract.
She wants to restrict reconsideration. Is there a second? Give your name, please. Sue Sherman makes the second. Somebody else? Okay, we're all set. I'll call for a vote on restricting reconsideration on Article 3. Those in favor of restricting reconsideration on Article 3, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We have a restricted article. Article 4, authorization for special meeting on cost items. Shall the Timberlane Regional School District, if Article 3 is defeated, authorize the Timberlane Regional School Board to call one special meeting at its option to address Article 3 cost items only. Majority vote required. Without this article, the district would have to petition Superior Court for a special school district meeting. This saves the district the expense of attorney's fees and court costs. Recommended by the school board, 6-0. Is there a motion from the floor? Is there a motion from the floor? Yes, Eileen Champey?
Eileen Champey, Danville.
Second? Give your name, please.
Elizabeth Costa, Plastow.
Point of order? You don't need a motion.
On Article 4? Why not? I don't know.
We haven't been taking motions on the others, right? They just go forward. Just keep reading.
We've been taking motions on the other, to put it on the floor. I think I've been doing that all evening, I think. Is there any presentation on Article 4? Okay, any discussion on Article 4? Wish they were all this easy. Then, as you see Article 4, it'll be on your ballot election day.
I'd like to make a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 4, authorization for special meeting on cost items.
Would you give your name, please?
Michelle O'Neill.
Is there a second? To restrict reconsideration, give your name, please.
Catherine Rochford Atkinson.
We have a motion to restrict reconsideration on Article 4. Those in favor of restricting reconsideration on Article 4, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We have restricted Article 4. Article 5, Capital Reserve Fund. Shall the Timberland Regional School District raise and appropriate up to $100,000 to be placed in the school building, construction, reconstruction, capital improvement, and land purchase capital reserve fund established in 1996, with such amount to be transferred from the June 30th, 2010 undesignated fund balance surplus available for transfer on July 1st of this year. Majority vote required. The funds for this article come from the 2009-2010 school budget surplus, not from additional taxes. Recommended by the school board, 6-0. Recommended by the budget committee, 7-0. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion. Michelle O'Neill, Danville.
Second? Give your name, please.
Elizabeth Costa, Plastow.
Is there a presentation on Article 5? There being none, are there any questions? Yes, sir. Give your name.
Todd Barbera, Atkinson. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I do think that capital reserve funds are a good idea, but I do have a couple quick questions. Could you tell me what the current rate of return is on the capital reserve fund? Anyone on the board?
Rate of return?
The school capital reserve fund is held by the trustee of trust funds in Danville. That's designated by our articles of agreement. I don't know what that's earning at this point. It's not within the control of the school district at all.
Okay, I would imagine that it's probably a small fee at this point, though, like 1% or less. Is that safe to assume?
Based on any earnings.
Right.
These days, I'd tend to agree
My
with
next
you.
question, and I think you'll probably see where I'm going with this, is what is the rate of return, the interest rate on the current bonds that are outstanding?
I believe from 4.5% to 5%, but we have received a couple of refunds over a few years ago.
Okay. Has there been any consideration to, instead of channeling that money into the capital reserve, to pay down the bond, which I believe might be a greater bang for the buck for the taxpayer?
We're not allowed to do that.
Okay. Is there an RSA that states you're not allowed to, or?
Not one that I can quote right now, no.
Thank you.
Any other comments on Article 5? Any other comments? Article 5.
Paula Martin, stand down. Can you just tell me how much is in that capital reserve fund at this point?
427,000.
And do you have some plans already that you're going to present to us? of
On
what
the
you're
next
doing
warrant
with that?
article.
Thank you.
Any other comments on Article 5? Any other comments? Article 5. If not, then as printed, you'll see it on Election Day. Article 6.
Make a motion.
Yep.
Michelle O'Neill, Danville. I'd like to make a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 5, Capital Reserve Fund.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Who's Al?
Catherine Rochford Atkinson.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'll call for a vote on restricting reconsideration on Article 5. Those in favor of it, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. It's restricted. Article 6, Atkinson Academy kitchen renovation. Shall the Timberlane Regional School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $225,000 to renovate the kitchen at Atkinson Academy and to authorize the district to withdraw up to the sum of $225,000 from the existing school building construction, reconstruction, capital improvements, and land purchase capital reserve fund? Majority vote required. The funds for this article come from existing money in the district's capital reserve fund, not from additional taxes. This article, therefore, will not increase the 2010 tax rate. Recommended by the school board 6-0, and recommended by the budget committee 6-1. Is there a motion on the floor? Please let there be a motion on the floor. Yes, ma'am.
I'll make a motion. Catherine Rochford Atkinson.
Is there a second? Yes, down here. Gentleman with the gray hair. Well, you're like me. You sort of stand out. I'm sorry.
Jack Paoni from Plastow.
Is there a
gray
presentation
hair.
on Article 6?
With the gray hair. Hey, put the mic on.
Superintendent?
Yes, I'd just like to quickly comment on it. You see some pictures there. Give a little bit of history. In the 1999-2000 timeframe, when the last renovations to the schools were done, each and every one of the schools in the Timberlane School District were renovated in some fashion. One of the areas that was not considered at that time were the kitchens, leaving the kitchens primarily at the elementary school very wanting. About 7 years ago, the school board authorized a company by the name of Crabtree, who specializes in assessments of commercial kitchens, to come in and assess the kitchens and prepared a report that we refer to as a Crabtree report, and found many areas that they were wanting. From that time on, the school board began, out of operating budget, addressing a number of the more modest needs that existed at the kitchens. For instance, in the left-hand picture you see there, you see what I would consider inappropriate storage. That has been corrected with proper dunnage racks and those types of things. So most of the modest corrections have, in fact, been made. What is left, however, is some substantial need corrective actions in many of the kitchens. Last year, the school department underwent a major renovation of the Danville kitchen, which was the one that was most in need. The one deemed to be second most in need is the Atkinson kitchen, which is both very small. It has a very tight working area. It has very poor air quality, very poor acoustics, and it has some aging equipment in it. It also has a non-compliant fume hood. It is non-compliant in two ways. One of them is it has no fire suppression, which is required. And second of all, it has it's a welded type that is not deemed to be healthful and is not appropriate, and that needs to be changed. Just a point of note that was actually cited at the Danville kitchen, and we were put under a compliance order by the state of New Hampshire to correct that issue at Danville. So the school board strongly wishes to move forward, and the budget committee strongly wishes to move forward with continued improvement of these kitchens. And the proposal is to take $225,000 to improve the kitchen at Danville. I'm sorry, to improve the kitchen at Atkinson, to withdraw that money from the capital reserve fund, we just timely spoke about, and to do it in that fashion so as not to negatively impact the tax rate for next year.
Are there any questions on Article 6?
Paula Martin, Sandown. I was curious, is there a food service company now that works in those kitchens? Is that correct?
We have a management company that manages our full service, but the employees that work in the kitchen are Timberlane employees.
So does the management company lease the space?
No, we hire a company to manage our food service for us.
And so they're a profit company, right?
They're a for-profit company, correct?
And do we guarantee them a minimum revenue? Is there some kind of a contract, something?
We establish an annual contract with them.
Does it have like a minimum and a maximum? So if we don't hit a certain amount, they're still guaranteed a certain amount?
No.
No, there's nothing like that?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on Article 6? Any other questions? Article 6 is printed, will be on your ballot, Election Day. Article 7.
Make a motion?
Yes.
Neil Danville, I'd like to make a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 6, Atkinson Academy kitchen renovation.
Restrict reconsideration. Is there a second? Yes, over here.
Second. Jack Paoni, Plastow.
Jack-
White here.
Mr. Paoni makes the second. I'll call for a vote on restricting reconsideration. Those in favor of the motion to restrict reconsideration, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, it's restricted. Article 7, general acceptance of reports. Shall the Timberlane Regional School District accept reports of agents, auditors, and committees as written in the 2009 annual report? Majority vote required. A motion? Yes. Give your name.
Elizabeth Costa Plastow.
Second.
Arlene Champi Danville.
Is there any presentation? Anyone making on any of the reports? Any questions on any of the reports? Any questions? Then as printed, it'll be on your ballot Election Day. Thank you for coming. That concludes our meeting. Have a good night.